Aw, nice. We can see now.
Yeah, but I have to get that shit off the screen. That's the hard part every time. And then I end up clicking on the wrong thing. Yeah. Alright, so you have to get the exact number when you do the clicks because I can't see anything. I want to get this shit off the screen. They just really just did not think about HDMI at all as a way to stream. Somebody's going to change it in the like labs. People are going to change it at some point because it's such a pain in the ass. It takes me, the latency is so bad that I can't get to the thing I need to click on fast enough while I'm looking at the stream, and I can't see the screen. It's seriously bad design. This is why people don't use GoPros for this. There. I get it fast enough? Oh, I didn't. It went off. See, it fades out. It fades out before I can get there. And if I try to click it to re-enable it, watch. I'll click it to have it bring up, and then I just click the other thing. But then if that should do it. No, it didn't do it. God damn it. It didn't.
Good.
Hi, Timon. Oh,
hello, Concha.
I think I just turned it back on again. Because it's so much latency. Watch, it's gonna come back on now because I just did it because I thought it was off. It's such a pain. Please tell me it stays off.
We good now.
Yeah, but
no overlay.
Yeah, I know, but your messages are kind of leaked. Alright, so the problem I was having with the fisheye before is that's why
Screen is almost entirely clear. It's good this is Utah.
Yeah. No, this isn't Utah, this is North Carolina. So this is max lens with super view on. And I'm embarrassed to say that I got in such a hurry this morning that I just installed it and I didn't look. And it says there's a setting you have to go in and it says you have to enable the max lens mod, which is why we were getting pictures of that's why you guys can probably tell that it's so smooth now. Look at how smooth it is now. Holy shit. Look at how smooth it is now.
Hello.
Hey.
About.
I mean, it is really, it is going to be a little shy, but no. Got this. Once you get to go to do, it's not a mode, it's not a video mode. You have to go in your settings and you have to
glitch in the matrix. Glitch. HDMI cable.
Cutting
out a lot now.
Actually, the cutting is probably not the HDMI cable, it's probably our Wi-Fi here. This is a place that has really bad Wi-Fi. What are the bits? What does the bit rate say? No, we're still high. We're still pretty high. God damn it. I sync the cable a little bit.
Bitrate was dropping.
Yeah, I think so. We're actually in a place that's got really bad Wi-Fi. So
it was from 8,000 to 400.
Yeah.
How much to live here?
Oh, $1 million easy. These houses are all 700,000 to $1 million right here. I'm probably going to get somebody to say something to me today because I am walking around with a camera in my hand as opposed to just doing the normal thing. The lens is worth it though for the extra stabilization. That's why I got it. It gives you more field of view. But here's the thing. You have to go into the system preferences and you have to say show max lens mod things. And when you do that, all of a sudden your entire menu system changes and it gives you all these different options for using the max lens stuff. And that wasn't even available to me before.
Why are American lawns always looking good?
Because Americans are fucking crazy about their lawns. I mean, I love a good lawn, don't get me wrong. It comes from the 18th century, right? The whole lawn thing in the general. And plus, they just got off the weekend, right? So everybody's got all their lawn mowed. Monday is the best day to come film because everybody's yards look fantastic because they just...
The grass is always greener, ha ha ha.
It is. It is. It's always greener. I'm gonna take a pace up a notch so I can
Grass only looks good if you're in a good neighborhood.
Look at this. There's a trailer right there. And then huge lawn and like a trailer. Kind of some hippies back there. I'm gonna get in trouble for filming. I can just sense it already. Because it's like really obvious who I'm pointing the camera at right now.
We need more wildflowers to some anarchist seed spreading, Rob.
Oh, I agree. Plus the lawns that are here, they're not natural. The cost to maintain them is like ridiculous. Here comes, see this guy. Can you see the guy out of the left? He probably can't. I'm not pointing the thing at him, so I'm just like walking through. I'm not looking at him. Because if you can see him on the left, he's like totally eyeing me. He's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? So, just like doing some different things. People always worry because they think, because they live in fear, so they're afraid that I'm casing their homes to decide where I want to rip off, you know? A lot of times that's what they think. I'm not doing anything any other person wouldn't do. In fact, I used to do this with my wife. We would drive through different areas.
Holy shit, the lawn manicuring obsession is so annoying to me.
Oh yeah,
I
me
hate
too.
having to listen to everyone's fucking mowers all summer
Oh,
long.
I know. That's exactly what it is. You want to live in the suburbs, that's what you're going to get. And one of the reasons that I don't want anywhere near the suburbs is because of the lawn noise. It always sounds like a two-cycle engine. Always. But you go up into Spruce Pine or someplace in the mountains like that where people have natural yards, and it's just...
Or you hear from the walk.
Yeah. 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 The HOA. Homeowners Association, for those who don't know. That is the organization that makes sure the property values don't diminish because you don't take care of your yard. And I'm not even kidding. If you don't take care of your yard, they will come after you.
Agreed, but the new electric ones are actually super quiet.
Yeah.
Was on a walk and didn't hear one until it was literally feet from me.
Yeah, the electric ones are better, for sure. You can still hear them, it just has a different sound.
Whoa.
I mean, I want to live in a neighborhood, and they have neighborhoods like this in Asheville. I'll take you through them. I told you we're going to do Discovering North Carolina on Saturdays, right? Which means I can spend Friday...
Your lawn is your lawn.
Yeah. We're going to spend Fridays driving up to different sites, and I'm going to cover different sites. And I can just talk on the ride on Friday, depending on... I was going through my budget for gas and everything. I had that all, I did it all yesterday. So we can like do a couple long trips per month, you know? Like I could actually go all the way to Asheville and cover that. So my goal is why I moved, this is why I moved the boots to Sunday.
Quality rant against the suburbs. Check out James Howard Kunstler.
Oh yeah. Against the suburbs, I haven't seen him. I'll have to read it. I am not a friend. Most of my experience about anything, including the suburbs, is because I'm living there. I want nothing to do with suburban life ever again. I think it's one of the reasons that humanity is failing so miserably, is this idea of suburban life. One of the things that Amsterdam gets a lot of things right. Can I just say? Amsterdam gets a lot of things right. And one of the things they get, I mean, they got some of the worst drug addiction as well, but they got the lowest teen pregnancy rate of any country. I mean, Amsterdam, red light district.
Your lawn to take care of. If you put out regs for long enough on anything with your home or lot, most HOAs have the right to confiscate your property.
Oh yeah.
At least here in Florida.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they will fine your ass. We've had people be fined, and they're not little fines. They're like $400 or $800 fines. Because they don't, it's all about property value in America. It's all about greed and real estate and property value. The most important thing in America is property. And if you don't protect other people's property rights, the institution will find you and take you out. Because That is what matters most to Americans. I think it's really clear. We had a real estate mogul as a president for how long? You know, it's all about land ownership, you know, the American dream, to own land, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I want to stay positive, though. I mean, look at how beautiful it is here, you know. Our neighborhoods are kept up really well. They're really beautiful to be in. So there are advantages to that, for sure. But then you got to consider, you know, a lot of other things, like, and one of the reasons I want to take you to Asheville so you can see how other people live in America. There's like lots of different types of people, and they all live in different ways. You know, if you go up in the hills, the people in the hills don't give a shit about their lawns. And a lot of them actually own fields. So they spend all their time on their fields, and their lawns look like shit. Because they don't need to do it. They're so busy like tilling the land and stuff. And in Asheville, it's like Amsterdam. There are houses that are kind of, you know, stacked next to each other, and they have natural things. So they'll have like butterfly gardens and stuff like that, and they'll just let the natural. They won't even have lawn because lawn is a pain in the ass to take care of. So what they'll do is they'll get natural shrubs and they'll get the natural fauna and they'll organize it and they'll make a garden in the front yard. And from what I've heard about England, this is one of the reasons I want to go to England. From what I've heard about England, that's what they do there as well. I know in Amsterdam you can drive down and there's this absolutely gorgeous porches, you know, and they have all their plants and pots and stuff. So there's still a lot of opportunity to do, you know, yard cleaning and, you know, gardening and all that. And I'm not putting that down. It's just, it doesn't have the big wasteful lawn. The lawns produce pollution. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. But it's a holdover from 18th century England, where other people with money wanted to show how much money they had. So they just made these big useless lawns to say, I have so much money, I can maintain this massive fucking lawn just to show how much money I have. That's true. Go read it. Go read it. Go do your own research. And that's where lawns came from. I mean, I like this house. I know it's double wide, but I like this house better than all the others because they just put bark dust. See that? They just have like well-managed bark dust and some shrubbery. It's cheaper for them to do. They don't have to make noise all the time. This guy is doing what I used to do. This used to be my favorite thing to do in the summer. This guy is pressure washing his driveway. And I had that exact pressure washer. Actually, I know mine was a yellow one. I'm curious. My pressure washer was my favorite power tool. I would pressure wash the house. I would pressure wash the driveway. I mean, my driveway was like immaculate. It was just like immaculately clean. He's even got a really cool little attachment for it. It's kind of cool. I don't know if he wants me to film him, but it's kind of cool. You see that? Yeah. And I used to obsess. I used to obsessively power wash everything. I did. I obsessively power washed my house and my car. It's actually buying a power washer like that and, you know, cleaning your car instead of paying to go to the car wash is more fun and is probably more cost effective.
Guess that's why our power washing porn exists.
Yeah. Yeah, I fucking love power washing. And I don't know why. It's like, I'm sure like some people want to be dentists because they're obsessed with removing, you know, plaque from teeth or some shit. Dental hygienists or whatever. But like,
thank God they are starting to prohibit stone gardens here. I live in a green neighborhood in a city and the climate here is so much better than elsewhere.
Really? Yeah, I think stone gardens are fine. I think, you know, that's a good point. Because like, at what point do you trade off not having any vegetation? I mean, it's very fragrant here. You know, mostly it's because of the trees. The trees, it's just the smell and the oxygen. It's just, you can tell it's nature. It's just filled with, you know, oxygenated, wonderful air here, except for the 2-cycle engines. I mean, it's really amazing. It's really amazing. You got the lake right there. It's completely and totally polluted. It burns your teeth. It burns your nose if you swim in it because of all the nitrogen runoff from all of the lawn fertilizer. But nobody cares because they don't swim in it. They get in their big boats and they, you know, drive around on it. Their jet skis and shit. They don't actually go in the lake just except for to cool off and do water skiing. They don't swim in it, God forbid. Which really sucks because I love open water swimming. If you've ever done an open water long distance swim, you don't have any laps to do. Usually you're not getting your nose.
That's a shame. Swimming would be the best.
I know.
Never live in TX. Is
Yeah.
Apartment an option? I hear TX property tax is high. What a shame.
Yeah. It's really too bad because, you know, open water swimming is one of the most amazing, rewarding things. If you ever get a chance to do an open water swim in a clean lake, a clean freshwater lake, there's very few experiences like that. Because you can just get into this rhythm and you're not afraid of a shark eating you and the water's not burning your nose. And you're...
2 hours since you told about that brain-eating bacteria kappa.
Yeah, not in here. But see, that's the thing. Over here, I don't think... But you could protect yourself from that with a nose clip. I wear nose clips when I swim anyway. Because I got such a big fucking nose. I mean, people say that I just have to learn how to breathe properly when I swim, and I don't. But I mean, it's really beautiful. Really beautiful. And the lawns are beautiful. I'm not saying the lawns are not beautiful. I just, in my old age, I'm like, why?
I don't care about brain-eating bacteria because I have no brain.
Well, you can't formulate sentences. I didn't have a brain. But see, this is the natural fauna, the natural grass, right? So I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that. I mean, I feel like this house is so gorgeous. It reminds me of a castle. It reminds me of a castle every time I come by it.
These prefer the wild gardens, so let's do it for them.
Yeah. I like wild gardens. I think having a manicured wild garden, first of all, it'd be less hassle, smaller space. Look, if you want wide open spaces, go fucking in the mountains. Go on a hike. Go actually see real nature. You don't need nature in your house. This is why I don't like suburbs. And then you have to drive to work. Everybody has to drive an hour of work each way in order to get it. Whoever, you know, invented them, and I don't know, it's probably a car manufacturer. Whoever invented suburbs really fucked over America. They really fucked us over. Because we got these big, huge, empty things. Beautiful, empty things that nobody uses. It's so bad for humanity, but it's beautiful. I mean, I don't know. Do they do that in other countries? I don't know. Yeah, bees prefer wild gardens. So I actually wondered about that question. So where do you go in Europe? In Europe, do they have big ass lawns? Do they still have big ass lawns in like Britain and stuff? England, Scotland? I mean, I'm guessing they do. Oh, here's the truck guy. Here's the garbage person. It must be garbage day today. I didn't realize it was garbage day today. It's the same? Interesting. So, yeah. And, you know, I don't know what the deal is there, but truck. Anybody ever lived in a place where the garbage service is stopped? You want to see a piece of real estate go to shit in like 3 weeks. Stop taking the garbage out. I know.
Something like this in the UK is rare. You would need so much money.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, these people do have a lot of money. I'm not gonna lie. Especially the ones that are home. Like these guys over here, these guys that are working on their own homes. That means they've retired earlier, they're executives and they don't have to leave. So they just work on their yard all day. There's a lot of them, actually. I'm not putting that down, it's just the state of affairs. Because, I mean, honestly, they don't have anything else to do. I know that sounds really sad, but it's the truth. My father-in-law had nothing to fucking do with himself. He was so embarrassingly Look, he's got all this stuff out. Oh, he's got a bandsaw. He's getting ready to build a deck or something. So that stuff, that might be an actual worker getting ready to go off to a job or something. And I had all that too. I had a full garage. What's a polyglot? A polyglot means that you know more than one language. Literally, it means many tongue. That's what polyglot means. Chopped up the bodies. There's at least one house within 5 miles of us where I guarantee you there's gonna be some kind of super fucking shady thing going on. Whether it's like you know, child trafficking, or you know, human trafficking, probably not child trafficking, or you know, some shady. I swear to God, within 5 miles of us, I would bet good money that there's at least one undiscovered felon. It's a horrible thing to say, because these people, most of them are just, you know, God-fearing, whatever you want to call them, you know, nice people. Most of them are, but there's got to be.
Why is child trafficking your first guess?
Because.
Hey Rob, is this the correct time to ask my question about company asking to copy personal GitHub project to internal source control to use?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Smiley face.
That's 2 questions. One is about GitHub, one's about child trafficking. So the first one, the child trafficking thing. So Charlotte, according to, you know, the security officials here, I know this because my buddy wanted to use Blockchain for Humanity. He created Blockchain for Humanity, which was specifically to combat child and human trafficking. It was an attempt to use Bitcoin, you know, blockchain technology to fight human trafficking, which we can talk about that later. But he did that. So he did all the research, and in his presentation, for which he was paid like $4,000 to do keynotes, he identified that there were that Charlotte is a major human trafficking hub. And he told me that, and I was like, okay, that sounds reasonable. And we said, well, why is that? And he said, because there's lots of money here, there's huge interstates here, and it's really centrally located to the east, the greatest population center in the United States. In other words, you can ship in, and it has a coast. It has a coastal region too, so it's got everything. It's got a way to ship them in, it's got a way to fly them in, and then it's the distribution hub. Like, I know this sounds so sick to say, but the logistics of human trafficking are easier from Charlotte than a lot of other places in America, because they can take them up east, they can take them south, and the primary population is here on the East Coast. The West Coast, you know, and then there's the big empty no man's land in the middle of, you know, America. And so, pretty good. So that's why. And then he told me that, and then within a year or 2 after that, I kid you not, there was a massage parlor, and we'll go there. I'll take you right to it. There was a massage parlor that was busted for human trafficking within 5 miles of where I lived. And by the way, it's 10 miles from Trump Golf Course on the peninsula. Yep. Trump has a huge golf course on the peninsula here. It's like a really amazing place.
Why does this dude know so much about child trafficking?
I just told you. Did you hear about the other guy? I told you the story. I'll tell you again. The guy knows about it because he created Blockchain for Humanity, which was his, he wanted to do something good with his riches that he had earned from software engineering. And he looked for a way to apply modern technology to some of the biggest world problems. And so he had a daughter, and he thought about her all the time, and he always wanted to protect her. So he got into anti-child trafficking things that he could do with technology, and he tried to apply blockchain to that to allow people to have a secure copy of their identifying characteristics, so that they could, in his words, you know, be tracked by the proper authorities in order to be discovered and and brought back, because so many times they would be so traumatized it would be really hard to identify who they belong to once they busted something. So he would say, I know that's really horrible, but that was his reason. The guy's a good guy. I mean, you know, I don't think there's anything bad going on there. You know, so I mean, anything's possible, but I doubt it. I think he was very legit.
Oh, okay, cheers, man, thanks.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why we're talking. Maybe you missed that part of it, but that's why it came up, is because, I mean, we were just talking about how beautiful everything looks there, you know, and how looks can be deceiving. If you don't believe me, watch the Ozarks. It's complete fiction, but, you know. Dude, there's evil everywhere. So it's like, are you going to look for the evil or are you going to look for the good? You know what I mean? It's like, where are you going to look? Where are you going to look? You look for the evil.
Dog.
Yeah, lots of
Yeah,
doggies.
it's Breaking Bad equivalent.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Breaking Bad. Yeah. I love Breaking Bad. I hadn't seen Breaking Bad until last year because I was Mormon all those years. And then I saw that I could watch the whole series. I was totally addicted to it. I love Breaking Bad because for all of the reasons that people might not think. Breaking Bad is one of the most important social commentaries that has ever been created. The reason, I mean,
Spoilers, please.
I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I'll just say...
Ozark was good, except the last couple of episodes, Corguider.
Yeah, I hated the ending of Ozarks. It's horrible. I didn't really like Ozarks in general. Breaking Bad was way better. Breaking Bad was better because it did a better job documenting the breakdown of civility based on the pressures that are not the fault of the people that are in them. Breaking Bad is, in fact, I get kind of emotional when I think about Breaking Bad because Breaking Bad is kind of a devilish nightmare that comes true based on all of the, if you take the pressures of our current society, particularly in America, and if you go to the extreme, you get Breaking Bad. You get Breaking Bad because if you act purely based on the pressures of society on you, and you start to erode your ethics, you get a Breaking Bad situation. That's what you have. That's what you have. And it's so insidious in how it takes you down. Both of those series, they have one thing in common that I really love, that really just stabs at the heart of the problem in America. They both deal with rationalizing greed and profit and power. They both deal with that. There was a Stanford study, and I think I've told you guys about this a lot, but there was a Stanford study that 42 people, I think, were in it. You can go look it up. And it was a really simple experiment. They had two people play Monopoly with each other, and one of them, they gave an extra $500 when they started. And they played Monopoly, and they just filmed they just videotaped the study. If you really want to get an insight into true human character and why trickle-down economics never works, watch it. And it goes with the whole Breaking Bad thing. Because humans are really good, myself included, we are all really, really good at justifying our behavior as being what we deserve, whether it's good or bad. And in this test, I'll give away the spoiler on this, but in this Stanford study, not a single person said that the reason they won was because of their $500 advantage when they started the game. Not a single one. And it's actually, I'm getting kind of angry because it's so disgusting. They show you the video. We're not streaming anymore.
But yes, F.
Uh-oh.
At Experchi actually true. NSA trying to limit the spread of monopoly studies. Amazing how Fishies takes over. The government took him down. Kilo.
I wonder where it happened.
Trickle-down theory doesn't exist. We back. Back.
We are back?
We back.
All right, I'll just keep going then. Yeah, I think we were in a, that was a real low zone. Sorry about that. Okay. So in this study, Thank you for letting me know, because the chat comes in way before the other stuff. So in the study, you have to watch the video. I can't really paint the picture for you as well. Look at that red cardinal on the lawn over there. It's beautiful. So in the study, there are lots of different human reactions to this. So when they asked them, they said, the most prominent one was, well, I mean, that helped out at the beginning, but the rest of it was all me. And that's the human delusion happening. Well, yeah, sure, it helped in the beginning, but yeah, I mean, obviously I couldn't have won the whole thing unless I had been good later after that. So that, yeah, give me a head start, but it was really me who won the game. The head start wasn't the reason I learned the game. The game was 45 minutes long. I mean, come on, that just was like the very first thing that I got. It wasn't the reason. Every single one of them said the same thing. The thing that's really sad is how there was two like really disgusting reactions. There was the type of person who would sit back and fold their arms and like, see that? You suck, I rock. And they would take it as an ego trip. Those are the worst of all. And you see it, you can see it on film. They can't deny it, it's on their face. They're like, yeah.
$1 million long.
I know. And they think they're, you know, and Bezos gets $250,000 to bail him out when he's starting out. Bill Gates' mother set up his first contract with Microsoft. You know, and I mean, I don't even have to get into the racism thing. You know, oh yeah, we're all equal now. No.
SD card, no battery.
Oh, does it still say that? All right. Let me fix that. And so there was one of the ones that was a little bit more insidious. There was this one woman, and she was actually really kind. And she kept saying, oh, it's okay, you'll do better next time. I'm sure that next round you'll get it. And she had this like condescending shit attitude. It was so horrible. It was the worst of all to me. Because you could tell that she thought she deserved all that winnings. And she felt so sorry for the other person. She like legitimately felt sorry for them, but she also felt like she deserved it. And so instead of legitimate empathy or sympathy, it came off as this condescending, patronizing shit. Oh my God, it was the worst of all. And everybody has probably met somebody like that. Oh, I'm sure you'll do better next time. Here, I'm going to organize a church group to help you. It's just like, you know, white savior shit. And I'm just picking that on that specific example. I mean, it doesn't, there's other situations where it has nothing to do with race. You know, oh, I just lost one of my things because I'm gesticulating with my hands. Oh my God. That's cool. I lost one of my modems. And it just went right over to the other one, no problem. Holy shit, that was amazing. I dropped my phone and it came disconnected from the tether and it kept right on streaming. Holy moly. How cool is that? God knows I need that. I've dropped this phone so many times. And there we go. Here comes the back up. USB's back up. Man, that was crazy. Did you see this? And now it's catching back up. It's catching back up. That was amazing. I mean, that was amazing. If I had done that with just the one modem, we would not be having a stream right now. I mean, that was amazing. If I had done that, I'm kind of happy that happened. So, yeah. Anyway. About time for me to start my day. Somebody asked me another question. The big long one. Is this the correct time? Kane asking to ask
Never used a YubiKey or equivalent.
Oh, right. I'm using it's called USB tethering. So the internet.
I went to make myself a copy. Did I miss the GitHub question? Life is not fair. Deal with it. Bill Gates.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kane asks, is this the correct time to ask my question about the company asking to copy personal GitHub project to internal source control to use? I mean, let's talk about that for a bit. I got about 10 minutes left on my walk. So, let me see if I understand you, first of all. Is the company asking you to put your stuff into GitHub so that you can use it? Or are you asking to be able to use your own stuff? I mean, either way, I'll talk about both. So, when you're writing software, and you're particularly, the best way to write, in my opinion, the best way to write software is to be able to use it on the job and have it be free and open source is to write it off the clock, work for a different company, intermediary like Tech Systems, and then release it under Apache. And then at some point, you have to make a decision about, I mean, any open source software usually has to go through a FOSS process, FOSS, to be able to come in and be used within the company. Any code whatsoever, even your own code. So there's three ways to do that. There's three ways to write code for a company, and also to still be able to kind of use it outside. One of them is to just write an exact copy, and this is still legally, if somebody wanted to come after you, you would still probably be at risk. So one of the ways is for you to write the same code for the company that you write for yourself. And I mean, there's some code, you know, that has variation, and if you're doing that, then, you know, they own that code that you wrote, but the other code that you wrote for yourself someplace else, which may or may not be related to it, as long as you, I mean, cutting and pasting it, you kind of want to, you know.
Example, an employee created a personal package tool on their GitHub. To use it internally in the company, they asked the employee to copy the code to internal source control. Does employee lose access to continue contributing his personal code at GitHub if company copies code internally?
Nope, they don't. It's on the company. The reason, I mean, it's very unusual to have a company ask to do that. It's called vendoring, by the way. Okay, so it's called vendoring. Vendoring is when a company or anybody wants to be sure that the stuff's going to be around, and they don't want to risk having all the shit that's been going down lately where people just delete the stuff because they don't like Ukrainian war, so they delete their software to make a protest and the whole company goes down, which is so fucking stupid, by the way. If you're the kind of person who does that, you need to like evaluate your life priorities. That's like really stupid. And I mean, you're not hurting anybody by doing that, and you're not helping Ukraine by destroying a company that's dependent on your software. That's just so stupid, I can't even say. So, but to have a company say, hey, I want to use your software that's yours, it's on your personal GitHub, and it's released under open source, under Apache or something, and say, yeah, you need to make a copy of that in here and then use your copy in here. Now, if they're asking you to do that, that means that they're probably okay with the license. And that means, guess what? Legally, you're saved, because if they're telling you to do that, the onus is on them to make sure that they have legal protections for you to use that, for the company to use the software. Now, what gets really interesting is if they actually told you to do that, and they know you have a GitHub project, and they know that they're going to use your changes, if you work on your own time, and this is where being a software engineer gets really, really, really dicey. Because first of all, you're being paid. When I was at IBM, any thought I ever had belonged to IBM. I signed a paper that said so. Now, a lot of companies don't do that anymore. But the bottom line, if you have not signed such an agreement with a company, that means any work you do off the clock and not using the equipment from the company on that project, your project, belongs to you. It belongs to you. And if they want to bring it, so let's say this. So let's say on the weekend you change it up. You can then bring that code into the company because they've already signed off on that package. Now, some companies have much more strict rules about this. They want to validate every fucking version of a thing legally. But most of them just want to look at a project, look at its legal pedigree, and just go with that. It's actually a huge business, by the way, helping companies track legal pedigrees.
Crazy how many patents IBM file for every year.
Yeah, but IBM is the devil. IBM is the fucking devil of FOSS. And the reason I got out of there, one of the main reasons I got out of there, they tricked me into thinking that they were free and open source. Peace, love, and Linux. That was their campaign in the 90s that they did. Late 2090s, 99. It was total bullshit. Now, they ended up becoming a Red Hat Linux company, but it was total bullshit. And I had to go through legal. So some of the stuff that I do now with my company, which is I write fresh software that's based on my Apache licensed stuff. And I bring copies of that into the work, and I use it in work, and I remove the licensing references, and I change all the places to look for the local references. So the code would never work outside of the company. Now, mind you, the code that I'm writing is not for a flagship project, right? It's something they're going to sell. And one of the great things about being in operations, and this is really true at IBM, it's one of the main reasons I stayed with operations at IBM, because at IBM we had carte blanche. We made a virtual server administrator, and we had permission from the CTO to use any open source software we wanted to because we weren't selling a product. You can use free and open source software. They said, fine, yeah, you can use whatever free and open source software you want. We don't care. Just get your job done and keep our systems running. So I built a whole system based on Postgres and Perl and all this stuff, and I didn't have to get approval for any of it because it was a service. It wasn't going into a software package that was then going to be sold. And that's where the legal liability comes to the company. So if you're a software engineer and you're being asked to use your private FOSS stuff in a product that's going to be sold for money, that's a much, much bigger deal. It's a much bigger deal. And God knows I love the code, and I hate having to go through all that legal shit. It's another one of the main reasons I don't want to be a software engineer. I could be, but I don't want to. I want to write code. Unfettered code any way I want, and operations is the way to do that. You know, it would take somebody, there would be an immense burden of proof for somebody who was to even to attack, say for example, the company that I work for right now, and who's motivated to do that? Nobody's motivated to do that because they'll have the same chance. So there's nobody who's motivated, not even the open source people, to sue the company I'm currently working on that I use some of my open source, libraries with. There's nobody. The main reason they do this is to save themselves. But if it ever lands in a product somehow, they can do it. Now, so like for example, Oracle or IBM DB2. Those are projects that have like a lot to lose. One shred. I mean, you just look at the lawsuit between Google and Oracle over Java, which went on for like 2 decades, over like a couple lines of code that a guy, they eventually proved cut and paste like 2 or 3 lines of code. No kidding, you have to go read it. It's crazy. But that's the enterprise world, right? That's how they operate. And so those people, they're just crazy. I mean, they're crazy about that stuff, and so because they had a lot to lose. I mean, a lot to lose is all I'm saying. So
Support to use system clipboard with tmux plus vim NVIM.
Have I had to configure SSH to support to use system clipboard or
They
tmux?
can't actually prove that. How?
I don't know how they did. I know that there was a huge discovery that took like a year where they went through every line. So to just give you that whole trial in a nutshell. So the Java, there was a lot of really serious things in that really could have impacted IT for the rest of the world. And thank God it's finally behind us. It went all the way to the Supreme Court and taken a ruling. And they overturned the rulings and everything. It was really, really dangerous there for a long time, anybody who's been following it. But I'll try to give you the 2-minute version since I'm just kind of walking around my parking lot now. So, Java came out. It was a hot new thing. Everybody wanted it. And the idea was anybody could write Java. Java's free to write, right? And the way Sun at the time, when they released it, did it, they said, yeah, anybody can write Java. Java is free to write. Anybody can write it. But they reserved their rights to the Java virtual machine, the engine. They reserved their rights to the engine. And they made an engine. And then that engine made it on everybody's computer. but it had to be the Sun engine. You couldn't have other people. So people could compile Java code, but you had to have the engine, then they would gatekeep the engine. And then you know, they also said, but anybody can write any engine, a JVM, it's called Java Virtual Machine. Anybody can write an engine anytime. It's like free and open, and we'll let businesses do it, but you just have to ask us first. And so everybody started asking them, and IBM had their own JVM, and everybody made their own JVM. And by the way, none of the JVMs worked the same. They were all slightly different. Because they're these monstrously bloated things that had GUI and backend all built in. Imagine having everything you could ever want built into this big fucking bloated JVM. And they did that. They put that. So they had this huge lawsuit. Oh, okay. Well, let me get to the lawsuit. So IBM never was fine. IBM was always on good terms. They paid gobs and gobs of money to get that. And so you could get, for a long time, there was that, and then it wasn't for some time until after that the open source world created the Open JVM, which you can still get now. Now the Open JVM is the one to get, right? Well, sometime in there, Google comes along and says, hey, we want to do it too. And they wanted to do Java because they wanted to do Chrome. They wanted to make Chromebooks and do all that stuff. And, you know, ultimately it would become Android. And because Java was definitely the best way to make mobile. You know, they're not really the operating system. They're all running Linux underneath, but it's like all the other stuff, right? So Oracle's like, oh fuck, Google's like, oh fuck, we got to do something. So let's fast forward a long time. So Sun gets bought by Oracle. You know, Ellison's Oracle. Oracle is like one of the shittiest companies that's ever existed. I mean, seriously, it's got to be one of the most proprietary, dickless asshole of a company that's ever existed. More evil than any other company that's ever existed. More proprietary than any company, with all of the drippings. I mean, some people say that Russ Hanneman was actually modeled after Larry Ellison. And if you know who I'm talking about, he's in the Silicon Valley series. No, I'm about home though. It's only an hour. Hour's fine. And so, of course, you know, Oracle's got a control of Sun because, frankly, they're dying. And they got to find something else to do because Postgres has taken out their Oracle database. Oracle's totally dying. Oracle is the modern SCO, and only a few people will get that, but that's what they are. So Oracle's like, they're in the death throes right now, you know. But Ellison, you ask Ellison, he thinks he's going to dominate the whole world. It's totally full of shit. Ask Dennis what he thinks is Larry. Anyway, so along comes Google. They're, you know, the biggest behemoth popular at the time, and you know, Google's got all kind of Oracle's got all kind of Google envy. And Google says, we want to license Java. We want to make a JVM. So what do they say?
Oracle stands for one rich hole called Larry Ellison.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so they come along and they say, no, you can't. You know who else they said no to? Microsoft. Guess where C# came from? Microsoft comes along and says, hey, we want to license Java. We want to make a JVM. They say, nope, sorry. Because now Oracle's telling everybody no, because they want to shut it all down. So this is free and open source. This is why people get really finicky. I think it's probably one of the reasons some of the older people are more, you know, hesitant with things like Go, because Google still has control of it, even though they've released it. They released everything. They released the source code for the compiler and everything, which they have not done, you know, for the Java thing. I mean, they finally did, I think. But so along comes, so they said, fine, we're going to make our own. And 6 months later, Google had their own version of Java. Yeah. They had their own version, they had their own Java virtual machine. Now, and Oracle's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. We told you can do that. And they said, we didn't need you. We didn't look at your source code. We made our own from scratch. So our engine is called the Google whatever engine. The Android engine. It uses the same language syntax, which you have decided is not copyrightable. And so we just made our own engine that uses your syntax. So there. And they claim they didn't violate any law. Because, you know, you didn't have to license the engine. They said, fine, we're going to make our own thing. It's not even Java. All it is a thing that compiles Java code. as far as you're concerned.
I don't know which language to master. See.
We'll talk about that later. So they decided, this walk is good for me, so I'm going to keep going. So they decided, so Larry, so Google turns around this entire engine. You can't call it a JVM, but it is. They write their own JVM in 6 months. They turn it around. They start making Android apps, and Google's like, "Fuck no!" And yeah, there's a couple nice vehicles. And so they said, "Nope, you can't do that. You can't do that." And then they had this big long 10-year drag out. And I have to finish the story, so I'm going to keep walking because I'm going to put this up on YouTube. So Java. The Java people, they're like, no, Oracle's like, no, you cheated, you stole our code, you could never have done it that fast. And I'm like, no, we're really smart, we just did it anyway, so there, you suck. And I said, prove it. And so they landed in court for like years. They did all this discovery, they every single tiny little peon software engineer got put on the stand and got scrutinized for every fucking line of code they wrote. Because they were sure, and they actually had a few people that were on the Java project before, which was a huge mistake on Google's part.
Nice.
And you tell them to show you on stream? Oh yeah, that's just so that you can see whether you got. That's been there for a while. It's hard to see because it was dark. I'm gonna keep walking until the story's done. Sorry, even if it's boring. So then they go to court. They fight. They find out, according to whatever documents, that yes, indeed, at least a few lines of code were verbatimly copied. Either that, or they got one of the engineers to admit that he'd actually copied the source code. And they lost. Oracle lost. And Oracle appealed to the Supreme Court because they were terrified. Because if Oracle lost that really tanked, Android shit. Because, and that, by the way, at around the same time, that's when internally you start to see all the projects like Fuchsia and Go and everything kick off. And I imagine the original part of Flutter. Because why? Because they were about to lose everything. They were going to lose Android. Because they weren't going to be able to use Android because it was violation of the...
Subscribe for 2 months.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Oh, we got a lot of airplanes today coming into the Piper Cubs. So they lose... They're going to lose everything. Google has everything on the line. So they appeal to the highest court in the land. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty details, but in the process of it, one of the courts, the court that ruled in Google's favor, and this was terrifying, you can go search for this. The finding, which was made by a court that had no technical knowledge whatsoever, was that an API, because they couldn't apparently Oracle couldn't lock them down on the fact that they used the JVM and they copied over the JVM. And so I think even though they found the person, they had to pay fines. Google did pay fines for having had that guy copy a few lines of code or something like that. But the courts were still like, okay, yeah, we rule in their favor, but they still have it doesn't kill Android. And Oracle still wants blood. They want to kill Android. So they're after him for more things. This is my interpretation. You can go read the actual legal stuff. And so Google comes back and says, all right, fine, we're good now. Since we did our time, we paid our money, there's that mistake from that one engineer, boom, Android is good. And somehow they land in court again, and I don't remember all the details of this, and they lose again. Only this time, Oracle sues them over the copyright to the Java API.
Lines of code. Stack Overflow devs start sweating profusely.
Yeah, exactly. Why do you think that the OpenAI project, that, not OpenAI, but that thing that helps you code, anybody that's using that, I'm like, you are just taking your life in your hands. I mean, you really are. Because there's proprietary code in there. It's been found already many times. And given the level of scrutiny that people do to code like that, if you are cut and paste coding, or if you're doing anything like that and you can't guarantee the pedigree and you end up on trial... Copilot, yeah. Who knows? I mean, that's why when people say, what's wrong with Copilot? I'm like, have you not been paying attention for the last 2 decades to all the legal stuff that's been going down? And they haven't, because they're not enterprise people. They're people fresh out of college that want to run Arch on their desktop Linux workstations. They have no fucking idea what the real working world is like. And I don't like that it's like this, but this is how it is. So this is the most chilling moment in this story. This is the most terrifying moment. It's the time when I literally had, you know, cold chills down my back. Google lost the court case that said they had violated Java's API. Now, if you don't know what an API is an application programming interface, right? It just means it's just a generic way to write code. It means you agree to write things this way, and it'll have this kind of signature. It'll take a string. It's not a web API. People associate that all the time because the web people have kind of monopolized the term. They love to do that. They did it with Node too, by the way. A term that's very generic that they decided to make their own. So they're like, no, you can't do that. And they're like, what? You told us the API was free. So we're talking about the language itself. The syntax of the language, the API, right? So, like, you know, Java wasn't just the Java-based syntax. It was also all the libraries that came in the base library. So, you know, vectors and, you know, graphics things, all those things. There was a whole standard library, right? And so Oracle's claim is like, well, that was Sun back then, and you know, and Sun has different opinion, and Sun said, yes, you know, the language itself is free. We're talking about syntax, but not the APIs. No, not the standard APIs. Those function signatures, that string comes, and then there's an integer, and then there's a string. You know, those classes and everything, all those definitions that you get in the documentation, so you learn how to make those things. Those things are ours. We've copyrighted that. You cannot name, you know, a class or a method the same as us and use all of the same stuff. That's copyright violation. You've copied our API. And they won. They won. And that all of a sudden terrified everybody. IBM, everybody else had done the same thing. Everybody else, and not only that, but it set a legal precedent that now...
Elon to buy Oracle and make it great or just destroy it, lol.
I don't know. Something has to happen. We've got runners coming. So what I'm trying to say here is that the court, without having any real technical background, has set a legal precedent that a company could, after the fact, come back and sue another company for using its function API. And that meant that any software, any proprietary software on the planet that allowed other people to implement the API using their engine, but released, you know, assumedly the API as free.
And we ended up with at least 4 popular Java runtimes.
Yeah, we had all those Java runtimes, but that happened way before that. But so, I mean, that happened before, but all those people that made the Java runtimes, they were now terrified because now they were the next targets. And Oracle's like, you know, rubbing their hands together, greedy money, like Larry Ellison's like, ooh, Smithers, you know, who are we going to get next? Perfect. Excellent. Who can we attack now? And so they started looking at other targets, just like SCO. SCO has come after everybody who's implemented anything even closely similar to AT&T Unix. Because they bought the original AT&T patents and everything. And then before they died, they sued the shit out of everything. They became a big, huge patent troll. And so Oracle starts to do the same thing. Oracle's now got a legal precedent to say you cannot even look at the Java API. You can make a Java virtual machine, but you cannot use the same names as our standard API. That means you got to make your whole new naming conventions. You got to use all your own lingo and everything so that any of the programs that would have been written to use that API won't compile on your API. They'll only compile on our API. And Oracle was loving it. They were loving it. And the rest of the world was terrified. And that was only like 4 or 5 years ago. And everybody was like, what the fuck comes next? And sure enough, Google, I mean, you can say a lot of bad things about Google, but, you know, self-interest. So Google, in order to survive, says, oh my God, we got to appeal this. And so they took all of their legal power and they appealed the shit out of that. And then went all the way to the Supreme Court. And ultimately, the Supreme Court overruled it. They turned it over. And the Supreme Court said, you cannot copyright an API that's published for public use.
Today, it's really just lawyers doing jobs.
Yep. And I'm not demonizing what the lawyers do. I think lawyers are the devil sometimes, but in this case they're just following the laws of the land. And the law of the land was public APIs are public. That means if somebody produces a public API and says, I'm sorry, we have our own version of the engine that implements this API that we can sell to you, but the API is free. You can use it whatever. If you want to make your own engine, fine. And that was the original statement from Sun. It just wasn't clarified enough. And Oracle tried to say, well, they meant just the language. They didn't mean the API for the standard libraries and everything. That's not what they meant. And they won.
All interoperability would have gone to the toilet with one court decision.
Oh, I know. One court decision would have destroyed everything. It would have destroyed Android. It would have destroyed the whole IT world. And the Supreme Court made a ruling, as I understand it, or at least...
I wonder if those lawyers and judges know any actual programming stuff.
No, they don't. They don't. And if you want to get a great story about that, I'll tell you the story about Randall Schwartz, who was... Right, but if you want to, another day, not some morning, I'll tell you the story of Randall Schwartz and how he lost his battle to the courts and was convicted of hacking at Intel. Remind me to tell you that story tomorrow. Very terrifying story. And I actually, had drinks with Randall. I was Mormon at the time, so it wasn't alcohol, but I had drinks at the karaoke bar with Randall once, a long time ago. Merlin wrote Learning Pearl and...
Subscribe to the F podcast, how to fix the internet.
EFF? Yeah, I probably should subscribe. I would actually like to talk to the EFF about that.
Is that copyright?
Yeah. Was it appeal court? Yeah. It was the appeal court and not the Supreme. Yeah. But they decided to not pursue it for whatever reason. But I thought it was Supreme. It was just one of the appeals courts, right? Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's a little scary too, because that means they could still appeal it again. Oracle doesn't have that kind of money, though. I mean, at that level, it's just a law of financial attrition to see who can stay in the fight as much as they want. And I mean, come on, Oracle was stupid. I mean, Oracle was really stupid to think that they could. I mean, come on, they're just got to be idiots to think that they could make what was proclaimed to be a public API. I mean, when somebody says you can make your own engine, but the language is free, it kind of just is implied that the standard library API is free, because that's part of the language. I mean, beyond a for loop or the class keyword, or basic types, the language is the standard library.
It was a gray zone and their lawyer was paid to do that job.
Yeah. Yeah, they were paid to do that job. They were paid to go after the gray zone, and they did. But I like telling that story because it's so important that people understand that you are a cog in that machine. And, and so the original question was, my company is asking me to take my open source project and copy it and use it internally. And legally, there's nothing wrong with that. Most of the time, companies would be the opposite of that. They would say, you are not allowed to bring in your software into our product without our permission. Because what you think might be totally legit, like, using Copilot, is not legit under serious legal scrutiny with $1 million on the line and an entire product. If DB2, for example, a huge, $1 billion product from IBM, if ever any free and open source software snuck into that thing, and the other thing too is that IBM's a huge target. There are free and open source lawyers from the EFF and from other places like the FSF and places like that, and they have all this money, and there's actually patent trolls who are, like, there was one that had to be kicked off there's a long story about a guy who was doing some of the network driver programming from the Linux team who was kicked off because he was running around suing all these big companies because they were fucking around with the GPL software. In fact, because of him, he was banished from the Linux community permanently, but because of him, they changed GPL v3 to have a clause in it that allowed grace periods. so that their companies, big companies, would have a grace period for remediation, because he was going to court saying, no, I'm sorry, there's no fucking grace period here. You owe me and the rest of the Linux community. And so he was running around doing class action lawsuits as an open source developer. He was done writing network code. He was like, I'm going to go attack everybody. And the whole Linux world was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And they're like, that's not what we wanted. So, you know, there's this kind of good and bad on both sides there. You know, so, but as an, why do you care? Well, I mean, and we'll wrap up here because I got to go back and work. If you're an engineer,
Where Windows NT included copy pasta network code from Linux.
I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't remember the details of his situation. But I mean, I just want to say this, that this stuff is not to be taken lightly. This stuff is a really big deal. And so I'm glad somebody asked the question. The short answer is ask your manager. You know, and I had to do that because I'm about to go bring in a bunch of images, open source images, and bring them into our internal cluster, our registry, and I'm going to use them. And I'm going to get, you know, written permission to do so because, you know, somebody could construe that as a violation of policy either for the company or for the people that own the licenses. And when that legal shit starts to hit the fan, you just want to have your nose clean. You don't want to be, you know, kind of caught out, you know. So that's the end of that. Really, that's really all I had to say about that. So I don't know. It's been a fun walk. Doing a little bit longer than usual, but I feel like I got good exercise. So I'm going to end it here. Any of you that know me, I'll be back doing co-working. I'll be on the screen, and so I can answer questions off and on during breaks. But I'm going to be highly focused.
Project that was using some GPL code temporarily to bootstrap their network stack.
It might have been. It might have been. It might have been. I might be getting the story completely wrong. You can help us figure that story out better. My wife spray painted the gnome red. He looks like a demon now. Demon gnome. Like a demon gnome here. So again, it's gonna be less boring. I'm gonna be back to music here, and I mean, I'm on the screen, but I'm not gonna be doing anything later tonight. Though I will be relaxing somehow. I don't know what I'll be doing. Probably playing games. Something talking about what language to master. We do a talk about it later. What languages to master? I've already done that. The boost, I can answer that question for you really quickly. I believe you should master Bash and Go first, and you can learn all the other languages after that. And if you want to do that, we're doing that during the boost, so you can go look for the boost when it's going to happen. I'm going to go get some water right now. Thank you, Vibing. English is a good one too, for sure. And so that's really all I have to say. I'm going to do that right away. That was my first thing. Let me go through my to-do list again so I can get restructured before we leave here. So my to-do list for the day is this. I'm going to be starting the export right away. It's going to take a while for that, you know, 8-hour video to chop up. So that'll probably take, I would say, probably within the next 2 hours. Donwa, it'll probably be within, yeah. So that'll be within the next 2 hours or so. That's going to be happening while I'm working. So I'll have that going on the screen. And I'm going to be working a good 6 hours today, at least. And then probably going for a walk again later today. We have 4 hours a day that we can go streaming without losing money. So depending on whether it's raining or not, I may go for another walk. And then I may play Overwatch. I may work on, you know, the boost stuff. So whatever I'm going to do for recreation later today. I plan on finishing my workday though at about 5 o'clock. So 4 or 5 o'clock will be the end, and then I'll be doing other things. But I'm going to go pretty heads down for the next 5 hours. You know, really intensely for 5 hours. So, and then of course I always work a little bit before I come on, and other times make the time. So it's nice talking to you all. I'll talk to you very soon. Again, if you have questions, queue them up. You can always ask here at the Discord. If it's a boost question, just know that you can ask those in the Discord, and a lot of people there will have answers for it already. And I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.